Welcome to the Out on a Limb podcast. We are all interconnected to a greater web of consciousness. Our aim is to open your mind to a new world through having open-minded discussions about what we perceive our reality to be.
Hello, everyone, and guess what? I don't have to say welcome to Out on a Limb podcast anymore. We just remembered.
Right.
Because we redid our intro, and thank you to the beautiful Chrysilla Lewis from the UK. Her beautiful voice introduces us, well, not by name, Samantha, Allison, and Will. But we don't have to say welcome to, it's my whole thing is now I have to.
Yeah, you got to come up with a whole.
My
Your
whole
whole
shtick
shtick is off.
But at least your hair is floofing.
Yeah, my hair is floofing.
And I have
fixed
my
the particles.
Happy heart mug today.
That's nice.
What you got going on? Anything?
Nothing.
Where did you get that?
We bought a whole bunch of these to do our cacao ceremonies because the cacao connects you with your heart. And so we got like 15 cups with
Let's see. TJ Maxx.
No way.
TJ
It was
Maxx.
many years ago. They may or may not
seriously
have them
cool.
anymore.
Yeah.
I might.
I
You might be missing one.
I snatched up all of them that they had on the shelf.
Is your hair floofing?
I don't know. It is.
You got a special mug? Got anything
no,
to talk about?
nothing.
Nothing.
Then I think we can proceed with the conversation.
I hope you guys do like the opener. I really love it, and thank you, Scylla. We appreciate that. But today we're going to talk about some wild and crazy stuff with consciousness. I mean, look, there's something I want to talk about today that I shared with, I have a couple of groups that I would consider my inner circle. We all talk about these sorts of things and what happens to us. And I shared this with them, and even they were having some challenges with it. You haven't watched it yet.
No.
And I haven't watched from the beginning. I did watch one or listen to one episode while we were driving.
But we're going to put a link when we get to that.
Yep.
I'll put a link, and I want you guys to watch these 4 videos if you can and let us know what you think. But at any rate, it's about consciousness. Now, we understand each human body comes in with a divine spark that's cleaved from source, comes in. That's our consciousness, right? That's our energetic essence. And we've talked about on this show before about how that consciousness can be swapped out sometimes, and we call that a walk-in.
Right. Right.
Now here goes the left curve.
Well, I don't know. Are we going to talk about walk-ins first then, I guess? Because you have it on your list.
I was going to mention it. Do we want to reiterate what that is?
Maybe just because.
Why don't you share what that is? What do you remember? You don't remember what a walk-in is?
Pop quiz, people. I hope you guys are listening.
Well, yeah, but you have the technical definition, but my understanding of a walk-in is when a soul, my understanding was that when a soul is just like, they're not able to fulfill whatever requirements or things have shifted, and it's just kind of like, okay, I want an out. You know, it's like you do like tag team wrestling and somebody else steps in and you go off and
Correct.
Yeah.
do your thing.
Right, and it requires the agreement of both souls. It happens a lot more frequently than one would think, to be honest. I hear it quite a bit now when we do our channelings, but
And I think it's really hard to distinguish between a walk-in and someone, you know, like when they've had a near-death experience and,
Right.
you know, they come back a changed person
Yeah.
because they're
Right.
so altered. But then there's those instances where it is a walk-in with
Yes.
that, you know, they did that handoff and it is someone who is coming in with a whole different, like, put me in, coach, you know,
Right.
I'm ready to go. And yeah, so it's a very different kind of thing. Or like we talked about in our last
the TV
podcast.
episode.
Yeah, where they're coming in to save the world.
Oh,
with,
right.
You know,
Right.
from
Right.
the future,
Future, yeah.
into the past.
no
So,
pressure, just save the world.
yeah.
Right.
So anyway.
Right, and so when we did our interview with Mark Patterson, I'm trying to remember, I know he had at least one NDE, near-death experience, and it changed him.
Right.
But did he also say that he felt that he was a walk-in at this point, also as a result of that?
I
Do you remember?
I do not remember specifically.
If you guys remember, let us know. But you can go back and watch the episode with Mark Patterson. He has had a lot of that stuff happen, and it has changed him, and
Yes.
it gave him skills and abilities. The NDE did, at least.
Right.
That he didn't have before. So that's a really good point
Well,
about
I think that the NDE experience, you know, because it's such a, you know, you how do I say this? Your consciousness is freed from the body for a moment. and you are reunited
True.
and you are,
Right.
there to explore. Similar to some plant medicine experiences, you are dissolved out of the physical so you can enter into the conscious stream and experience that. And so that's why many that have very profound experiences through plant medicine or an NDE, they do come back changed, because you're not fitting within the construct of the density of the third and fourth density. So you've been, for however long that might be, in our human time frame, it might be 30 seconds to a minute or so, but
it's a lot of things going through that person's experience.
Right.
Because you entered no time.
Right.
And-
So it might seem as if you were there in those 30 human seconds, you were there for 30 weeks. It's
Right.
just, there's no concept of time. So you're being induced with so much information.
I want to throw one more thing
Right.
into that
Right.
just occurred to me, because if we say that we're creator beings and we come into this world with a basic plan, I mean, there's
Yeah.
a little bit of room for, or a lot of room for all kinds of other things, but if you have an NDE, that's a big event. More than likely, you kind of planned on that event. So I have to go from, I mean, this is kind of my education. Like before, this would have never occurred to me. And now
Yeah.
revisiting this, I'm like, well, then you would have done that with the intent that you needed to retrieve information to bring back and share with everyone for a purpose for a
greater
maybe
purpose.
expansion, help expand people's minds or something.
Right.
There's something there. So, I don't think that you're just sitting there and seeing foom, foom, foom pass. I think that there's some intention going on there.
Right.
Yeah,
Not that you intentionally wanted.
I'd have to agree to
Really die.
to a certain extent. It's the same thing with with plant medicine. There, you're making a conscious decision to have an intention to enter into that space, where the near-death experience is more of an if you want to say pre-planned or pre-programmed experience that's going to take place at a certain time, so that maybe in that time frame, that life time frame, as it's happening, what you're going to be bringing back is needed, right? It wasn't needed 10 years prior or 5 years prior, or
Right. And it may
1 year
just be
later.
needed for you. It might
Right,
be
yeah,
needed
yeah.
for you or others. We don't know.
Yeah.
But some people don't remember an NDE. So I think that sometimes what happens is, and I know that I've heard this in many channelings, and mediums have said this, that you have some pre-planned possible exit points. You
I've
don't
seen
just,
about 5, typically.
so you don't just have one at the end of your life when you've decided. So you have some that, hey, if things aren't going so well, I'm checking out here, right? So I think sometimes maybe that's the exit point, and somebody has this NDE and they get up there, because I've heard this a lot of times too, where God or Jesus or the angels or somebody, whoever their guides are, will meet with them and show them what the rest of their life holds if they stay, and how wonderful it could be, or how helpful they will be to others, and that the pain will go away, whatever is happening that caused the NDE. And so they change their mind and they go
So
back.
it's kind of like Mission Impossible, where you're given a
choose
mission. If you choose to accept it, you can go back.
Right. Because they all talk about how beautiful and loving and wonderful and enveloping and
Yeah.
comfortable it is, and they don't want to leave.
Yeah.
And they often, the only thing holding them to earth is their children or their spouse, and they'll look and they can see that their children and spouse
Yeah.
will eventually be okay. So they just want to stay in that loving God embrace. But I think when they're shown what the potential is, they decide to stay off. And at least these are the stories that I've read about and seen.
Well, no, that's interesting, because I'm just thinking in comparison to that, and I know we're staying mainly on topic, but when I've connected with those who've crossed over, and I often ask, was this your last exit point, or your only exit point, or whatever? And there are times when I'm shown that there was another, doorway, but that, while it would have maybe meant a lot to family members for you to stick around and, be able for them to be able to see you, you wouldn't have accomplished anything more than what you'd already done. And you would just be living in pain, but you had the choice. Which do you want to do? And, usually they're choosing that doorway.
Yeah.
Go ahead and leave.
So if their
that's-
contract is fulfilled.
Yeah.
Because we've also talked, I know we've said this on the podcast before about a woman who developed breast cancer later in life, and she wanted to just not treat it and go ahead and die. Just let nature take its course, in other words. And when she asked the collective, when we channeled for her, they said, you can, but your contract's not up.
Yeah, you still have more to do.
You have things to do. And so if you die, you allow yourself to transition earlier than you had planned, you'll want to come back. And it's not like it's punishment, but when you get to the other side and you see,
you go, gosh,
oh
darn
man,
it.
right. I was so close. But like you said, when there's a walk-in, it's a situation when a consciousness cannot fulfill the rest of that contract for whatever reason, but the body is completely viable.
I just had a thought with what you said about her. She wouldn't have had the nudge to come and get that information from y'all if she didn't need that extra boost to hear and reconsider.
Right.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Everything
Okay.
is so orchestrated. Okay. And so that's one, the walk-in is one situation with consciousness. And then we've had a couple of pet things that we've talked about here before with consciousness. Okay. So we normally think one body, one consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Or a walk-in, still one body, one consciousness. But we had the animal, the schnauzer, who had the Chihuahua energy still living within him.
Oh,
Right.
That's right.
So technically you could consider that a consciousness because it was the consciousness of that Chihuahua that he had been in a past life.
Yeah.
But it was hanging on with him, staying within his body.
Right.
And it was presenting through the DNA. Okay, so remember that key point. It was able to present through the body's DNA.
Okay. I'm
Right?
just thinking, okay, that to me, that borders on like that bleed over kind of thing. Like, you had a mission from a past life, you come into this life and you still feel compelled
To finish it out.
Yeah, even though it's not really what you're
Right.
here to do and you have to try to release from it. So to me, that's kind of like a bleed over. That's just what I call it. I'm sure there's a,
But even a bleed over, would it affect the DNA that much? You know what I mean?
yeah, I don't
See,
think
that
so.
would
It
be-
affects
that
your
would-
actions, but
Right.
yeah.
It would be more in
really-
the conscious stream, or it would be more in the energetic stream than it would be the DNA. But this situation was so unique that the owner, before reaching out to us, had 2 separate DNA tests done, and it came back 100% Chihuahua. Though you look at the picture,
It's a schnauzer.
it's a I mean,
You
100%.
can tell the difference between a schnauzer.
Yeah. Well, okay. So on my way up, I was just telling y'all about this thing about frequency of light and sound. And what was that? One of the things they were talking about, so we're talking about the frequency of consciousness, based
Right.
off of that. So they mentioned how that frequency that it's all kind of like all the components of DNA. DNA had like whatever those different things are. I can't remember what they're called, the genotypes, whatever. They all have their own sound associated with it.
Sure.
And so that's how we got over to that. But anyway, so then so you talk about the frequency of the consciousness and that's what was coming through then. Was the Chihuahuas okay? Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
I like how you say that,
I'm trying to-
Chihuahua.
Chihuahua.
He was a
Chihuahua.
Chihuahua.
Wow.
when I said it didn't
Boom,
sound
chicka wow wow. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
All right, so remember that
Chihuahua?
the Chihuahua energy was presenting through the DNA, or the consciousness was presenting through the DNA somehow, right? Okay. Then we had a very interesting situation, and this has only happened once, maybe twice, where we did a pet channeling with a cat.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the cat's consciousness that came through, it was an ET being, an extraterrestrial being, and I think it was a lyric.
Okay, with a cat, that's so believable.
You're
Not
right.
with a dog,
Right,
but with
right,
a cat.
Right.
But now, and I'll tell you in a minute, because we did channel about this extra consciousness thing that I'm going to tell you about. And they said that an ET being is not the same as a human consciousness. So an ET being is ignited or animated through an energy of an extraterrestrial, that lineage, that line of energy. It is not the same thing as a human consciousness. There is nothing as unique and special as a human consciousness. So even if and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but even if an extraterrestrial presents in a human body, there are 2 ways that they do it. They can either come in like normal and go through the normal birth process where there's an egg and a sperm and it creates a human being, but it isn't animated through a human consciousness. It's an energetic piece from an ET lineage, and it comes in and presents as human. The other way is, of course, shape-shifting. We don't like that term, but that's the best way to explain it, is when they come in and they basically wrap a human meat suit around their energy. And it's usually for a short mission of some sort.
It's
as
so
an
weird, 'cause
adult.
that's another video I just listened to today. It was like a 4-minute video from Ryok, like an Essassani channeling from this Essassani.
And he was talking
Ryok.
about shape-shifting?
Well, he was talking about how ETs come into the body, like how you would actually
that's
appear.
interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, that's like, it's so weird how
it'll line
we're
up.
not talking about that today, but this is what's like I'm always presented with these things on the way up.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All right, so that ET being was sharing the body of the cat, and it had to have the cat's agreement to come in and share the body. And I don't remember all of the details. I don't think it was a permanent situation.
Yeah.
And when they do that, it's because the human needs that ET energy for whatever reason. So they might be connected to the Lyrans, for example, and the Lyran needs to be in the home and close to the human to give downloads or help or whatever, healing. All right, so with all of those different consciousness aspects.
That's the buildup, people.
Yeah, we've
Here's
laid
what
the
I-
foundation of possibilities.
Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, who has a PhD, a very unique individual in that he has a PhD in, I don't remember the exact name of it, but he created his own. Sometimes when you go to university and they don't really have a program that you want to follow, you can kind of create your own. And he did it in like consciousness studies or the paranormal, that kind of thing. And so he created his own. He's won an award. I think he submitted his dissertation and won an award by a prestigious organization that judges this type of stuff, paranormal consciousness, stuff like that. You can look it all up on his website, but he has a podcast called New Thinking Aloud. Like, right.
Yeah.
New Thinking Aloud. And
like that.
recently he had a series of 4. The 4th one is going to post, I think, this weekend, but I got to see it early because I received his newsletter.
Allison's on the in.
Dun, dun, dun. Anywho, no, somebody sent it to me. I don't receive his newsletter directly, but somebody sent it to me. Anyway,
Well
With-
done either way.
with a person who goes by the name of Tristan and Annika. Now, if you saw this normally, you would think, okay, he is a split personality.
Right, multiple personality disorder and all that.
And so when
Gender pronouns get really confusing.
when you watch this episode, the very first episode where they basically introduce themselves and Dr. Mishlove asks some basic questions about how this happened and what do they think about it and how does their life work and how does this happen. The gist of it is there are 2 consciousnesses in this one body.
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you right off the bat, this was fascinating to me and I had to ask questions. So we did do a private channeling and I asked a bunch of questions about this situation and it is legit. And I sensed that it was legit as I watched it. But I'm telling you, even the people in my close circle were watching it and they said I couldn't get all the way through the first hour because it was just, so it is odd. It's very odd to watch it.
I wish I watched it. Okay, so
Because you hear, look, they literally have, and this happens with split personalities. Tristan has a deep male voice, different cadence to his voice, all of that. Annika has a female voice, different cadence. The way she speaks is different. But the way that they come in back and forth is so seamless. It's just completely believable.
Yeah.
I don't think they're making
they're finishing each other's thoughts, like they're having.
They
part of
do,
the
or they
conversation.
interject, or they talk to each other. Yes.
And which body did they choose to come into?
Okay, so
Yeah,
this happened
that's
when
an
it was
interesting story. Is in it all wrapped into it as well.
right. Well, Tristan was the original body. He was in his early 20s when his fiance got pregnant. The baby did not make it, and it was that energy that was supposed to animate the baby that ended up coming in to live with Tristan in Tristan's body. So that, and this is what we found out when we did the channeling, is that sometimes consciousnesses who are very new, like they might be an old soul, but they've not been in a human body before or not many times. And so they just want to dip in and dip out a lot of times. We heard this in another situation where they'll come in, they'll live a series of very short lives, whether they take their life, or somebody else takes their life, or whether it's miscarriage or abortion or whatever. They'll come in a lot to experience a human, right?
They're kind of dipping their toe into the density.
Right. But sometimes they'll also come in like Annika did, and she had her own contract, she had everything, she thought she could handle it. And for whatever reason, that consciousness decided, no, I can't do this by myself, but I can do this with the support of Tristan,
Right.
who was an older soul and could help Annika's soul navigate.
Basically teaching it and
Yeah.
training it to understand what it takes
Being in
to
a human body.
being in a human body. Yeah.
So this is the premise.
Tristan could
Mind
never
blown, right?
have, I'm sorry, but he could never have sex again. If you knew that your child's consciousness,
It gets
female.
it gets interesting. So
Okay,
this-
I guess
We
I'm
haven't-
saying the obvious stuff there because it's like,
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
but then it makes you wonder how, if this has happened so many more times throughout history, or if it's just that we've reached a level now where there's that experience and we can. So did you ask that?
Yes, and
Thank
it has happened. It has happened a lot more frequently than we think throughout history.
Okay.
The collective mentioned that in indigenous tribes, when things like this present, or when people present with schizophrenia, for example, all of those types of things are not medicalized. They are brought, those beings
embraced.
are brought in
honored.
Yeah.
to the center of the community. They are nurtured and taught how to express themselves or use their gifts or whatever, right? So they said, not everything needs to be medicalized, and your medical system does not understand all of this. So there are a lot of people that are probably in mental institutions or who are not saying anything, who are on drugs, whatever, or who end up killing themselves. And I asked that of the collective. I said, this is a very tough existence. And they said, but either way, even if they end their life, they have presented that energy into the mainstream,
Into
the field, correct, right? And so Annika and Tristan have this mission to do that as well, and they're not afraid to talk about this. And Dr. Mishlove is brave enough to have someone like this on his show, because it is really difficult to swallow at first if you don't have this expansive understanding, or if you haven't.
Well, I know people around me who would just go, "Oh, well, they're just schizophrenic," and
Sure. Oh,
like
absolutely.
label it and be done with it.
Well,
instead of
Right.
keep your mind open and explore the potential.
So,
Right.
I mean, we listened on our last road trip last weekend. I think we listened to episode 3, correct?
Oh, was it?
It
I don't
was
remember.
Tristan. It was Tristan.
Yes, that would have
Yeah.
been 3, I think.
Yeah. So I listened to episode 3, and I went into it kind of with the mindset of, yes, being open, but yet trying to be very critical and skeptical. That's just my nature. What I come to find, and I stopped Allison about midway through because I wanted to express this, I was more focused on Mishlove's ability,
Questioning, right.
ability to, I'll even say interrogate, because, and
Now, let me just say, he doesn't come across as an interrogator.
not at
He's
all.
not,
not at all.
But he's trying to get to the bottom of it too.
Well,
just in the way that he asks.
He likes to explore, but he's also, because of his background, and Allison filled me in on a bit of his background, and I believe a lot of this kind of ties in. In order to give credibility to something, there are, I hate to use the word tactics, but there are tactics you can use in questioning to validate
what's
the
coming through.
authenticity of something.
Yeah, right.
So I was very keen in listening to Dr. Mishlove's, the way he would question. He would lead a thread to a certain point, and then he'd back up. He would jump back in that same
And relate it
Now
to,
you said.
right.
kind of like that. And then because the normal human thought process, and this comes from my I'll say limited background in law enforcement, the human thought capacity is of one of linear thinking, where if you're truly in a lie or something that's not correct, you can only think forward. You can't quickly think back and then
what
move
you just
forward
said,
to
or-
what you just said.
Well, I can't remember what I said just a few minutes. Like,
Exactly. So, but the way he navigated that,
Wow.
and then Tristan's response is, I mean, it's rapid fire.
Because the truth's the truth.
Because the truth is the truth. So in my I'll say my skeptometer went from one side over
it
to
skeptometer?
Skeptometer, right?
or skeptometer.
Right. However you want to say it.
that.
It swung over to the other side because I was like, okay, there's something here. I don't know all of what's here, but there is something here. And I like the way Dr. Mishlove is actually unraveling this for the validity of it.
Yeah.
So, and not trying to tear it apart, not trying to dig into it, but just the natural way of allowing it to flow.
If I recall correctly, I believe he was a criminal justice undergrad major, and he didn't want to continue with that. He was fascinated by probably some of the psychology and the psychological classes that you would take, right?
Yep.
I think that's how, if I remember correctly. But I don't think that he was asking it as a criminal
No.
Right. But I didn't hear that in the questioning. However, I think he was just trying to make sense of the timeline, because there's some timelines where Tristan's consciousness would leave the body for, at one point, 4 or 5 years and came back into the body. So. What happened?
So lay out the whole kind of timeline.
So once Annika's energy came in, Tristan little by little sensed something there and finally figured out that this was another consciousness, another being or whatever. So at some point, Annika was a little kid. It was like a little kid.
Yeah.
So it was like this 20-something having a little kid, and she wanted to play video games and do all this fun stuff. And, and so he loved that. And he was, I think, reveling in the joy of that.
Oh, wow.
And wanted her to have this full experience. So at some point, he decides to give the body to her. So he senses his own consciousness waning. He leaves her a message and says...
He calls it, he knew he was dying.
He felt he was dying.
Yeah, he felt he was dying. Not physically dying, but consciously he was dying. Because he was in the shift over point of turning over the physical body over to that consciousness of Annika.
Right.
Yeah, so he had all of this in him and he was preparing her, like in this
I think
in this
he left
episode.
a lot of notes.
Yeah, and how to take care of the checkbook, how to balance bills and do all these different things. I mean, like all the stuff. He was like training the other half of himself how to live as a human and be able to step away and just dump it off onto her. It's fascinating to me. I mean,
so she ended up, because she was a feminine energy living in a male body, she ended up having, what do they call it now? Sex change operation.
Yeah.
Is it I don't want to offend anybody. I don't know if that's the correct terminology. But they still, so she transitioned her body.
Yeah. Or started the process of transitioning
And now
from male to female.
They present as a female. So if you look at the body, it's a female. It's no longer Tristan's male body.
Wow.
So as she's going through life, and she didn't get into this in great detail, but there were some very highs and very lows, because this is like a 6-year-old trying to navigate. Like she could be taken advantage of because she didn't.
a lot of harder life things.
Then if she would have just entered
Come in as a baby.
Came in as a baby.
Yeah,
Maybe so.
I'm thinking, the whole gender thing. That right there is, that's next level in complication. It just and oh God, being an older body and all that kind of stuff. I'm sitting there going, wow.
So she talks a little bit, because the first interview is the both of them. The second interview, Tristan dips completely out of the body and lets Annika talk for an hour. The third one is Tristan talking for the hour while Annika steps away. And then the last one is both of them back again. Okay, so we have Tristan who left the body. Annika takes it over. Roughly 4 years go by, and she starts to explore consciousness. I think she did some plant medicine or something like that, and she accidentally called him back.
Yeah.
Essentially through, I think probably what happened is she entered the quantum field. They probably met up on a conscious level. They don't remember. And she wanted him back because she felt more comfortable with him there.
Yeah.
So his body, or his consciousness re-enters the body, and they've lived that way since, I don't know, 20.
They agreed to balance their
2021,
existence together. Yeah.
I think they've been back in the body together since 2021. So a whole presidential cycle had taken place. UFOs started coming out in 2017 while he was gone.
It would have been 2021-ish, because he said, if I remember right during that interview, he missed the election. He missed
the whole Trump thing.
Yeah, the whole Trump election. He missed the pandemic. He missed all these things. He had no.
Or he came in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you'd just be like, what the hell did you people do to the world? It's gone.
Right?
Yeah.
My mind's just so. How old was she from the time that she was left on her own to the time that he
I
came
want to
back?
say like 6. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember all the details, but she was fairly young. And she had she had been with him as he was doing these things, how to grocery shop, how to pay bills. So she's watching this adult body do it while she's in the body also. So she had some of those experiences. And he also confided in his best friend and basically left her in his care, and also told his mother, and his family accepted it, which was really nice. So she was able to rely on them a little bit, I think. She ended up getting married, being like a stepmom to some kids. I mean, she had a whole bunch of stuff happen in 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
And then he comes back in, and it's like,
But they're
look what you've done to the place.
and they're in love with each other. Their consciousness, because they understand love, true love.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to have another relationship with anybody else because they feel fulfilled together. And he said, yes, it's a little odd to think that this was my baby, but truly it's not. It's consciousness.
It's a conscious, it's a pure consciousness,
Right.
aspect, yeah.
So it's just such a neat, so she's getting ready to celebrate her 16th birthday is what they said on this 4th episode. And he's getting ready to celebrate his 30 something.
Physical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how many years in physicality. And I think his birthday's at the end of October. Hers is December 12th or something. So
Yeah, I got some watching to do.
it was, you guys have to watch this and let us know what you think. I don't know. I know now, I knew anyway in my heart that they were truthful. And I knew that Dr. Mishlove would vet them well because he's very much kind of the science and metaphysical,
He's
walking that
fascinating.
realm and trying to reconcile a lot of those principles. And so he's not going to have just somebody on his show that,
Well, exactly. That would ruin his credibility.
Right,
So that
right.
adds to that lids. But it's nice that he took the time to ask the questions the way he did to make it more
Well-
understandable to the audience.
Right.
Well,
too,
and the fact that he there's a series of 4. So, I mean, it's not just a one and done, oh, let's just have a 1 hour conversation with somebody that is showing this. Let's dig into this. Let's try to get to the root of it all and really dig into it, which is fascinating.
Were there 4 done over a period of 10 years or 4?
No. This was all within a couple of
the last one
months,
was
wasn't it?
recorded on Easter Sunday,
Yeah.
just this past Easter Sunday. And I don't know if he did all 4 on the same day, like gave themselves a
I
little
just
break.
wasn't sure if he had been following them for years or whatever.
I don't
No.
I'm not
think
sure
so.
how long he knew of them. Oh, I know. They connected with the Institute of Noetic Science.
That's right.
And that's how he found out about them, was through the Noetic Science people. So they reached out and told their story to the Institute of Noetic Science. And I forget what that stands for, but it's again, a prestigious group that studies this type of stuff, consciousness exploration.
That's just interesting. There's so many things that are so fascinating on so many levels with that,
There's just so much that we don't understand about the nature of reality and the nature of consciousness and energy and all of this. And I don't think we're necessarily meant to understand it all in a human body while we're here.
No, that's why our brains feel like it's going to explode when we talk
Right.
about some of these things.
But it is time to expand our boundaries and expand our understanding
Yeah.
and our construct. It is time.
And just realize how little we do know.
Oh,
Right. And just allow for people
Yeah.
to have their own experiences and their own
reality.
experience of reality. Right.
Yeah,
right.
their own
Whatever,
reality
whatever that looks like.
I think what's hard about or challenging about all of that is that, I agree, that I want to see, I want to be aware, I want to be open to all the different aspects, how people are experiencing reality, because obviously it's very, very different. It's not just, I have the same set of conditions you do, but how you're perceiving it and how,
Yes.
on
Right.
what level, and, just nuances and stuff, almost like you're going into a different timeline. There's a different set of rules and stuff. But what I find frustrating is that there's so much with our media that like tries to run this narrative. So you don't really know, like, I don't know if I can give an example. I'm going to try to keep this generic. But, like kids protesting, okay, at college campuses. And I'm not going to pick
Yeah.
a particular subject. It's not for or
Sure.
against or anything like that. But, you know, there's a narrative going on there about, you know, what they're doing, what they're protesting against, the intensity, the emotionality, and all that kind of stuff. And then you come to find out, well, a lot of those are paid actors. So that's reality being, you know, tampered with.
Sure.
Right.
You know, so all of a sudden, but then that's your reality. Like somebody else might have experienced it, that no, they're all actually real students,
Yeah.
and it's just my timeline that it's, you know, I guess that's where it starts to become like a mind.
Sure.
Not only that, but it's even if we're being lied to or manipulated or any of that, then if that's what you're perceiving, then you're perceiving that for a reason.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of lesson or learning that you wanted to have in this experience that you're having.
Well, it's like, and this went around a while back, and I can't remember what year time frame it was. It wasn't too long ago. Maybe it was just right after the pandemic, maybe right before the pandemic. I don't remember. But it was this whole aspect of this isn't reality. This is a video game, right? This whole.
The whole pandemic
Oh, was this a
thing.
TikTok thing going
No.
around?
That was well before TikTok. This was you. I think you even you wanted to go into channeling about it. This isn't a physical reality. This is a
That our existence.
that our
is?
existence
that's
and
the
our
whole
conscious
game theory
right.
thing.
It's the whole thing and so it's somebody else, you know, manipulating the joystick of all the stuff that we interact with. So you can say even this right here is a manipulation of the construct that, you know, what we're talking about, what is reality, what is consciousness, what is all of this? It's, well, is it what we're making of it, or is it what somebody else is making of it? So it really starts to fray at the ends of trying to understand it.
And I don't like to look at our life and trivialize it in that it's just a game that somebody's playing. Or
it's a game that
a
hurts
snow globe
and-
that somebody's shaking around.
Well,
But I like to use the analogy of a video game, in that it helps me to understand that I don't have to judge you as right or wrong. You can have your own experience. Like I can create whatever avatar I want to and have that avatar do whatever it wants to, and there's no right or wrong. That's my goal. That's what I want to do in this game. So it's okay for anybody, and we don't have to say, hey, they're not doing the right thing, or there is a true reality, or that there's a truth out there, or that there is a right way to do something. It's so easy to let it go when you realize that's the game they wanted to play in this incarnation, and the next time these higher selves tell us this all the time. They're like, for those who get frustrated with, they don't feel like their gifts are coming on in this life, they'll look back, and I point over here because that's where you look when you do past lives. They'll look back and they'll go, but here you were an oracle, and here you were this, and here you were that. You did all of that. And in this life, you just wanted to be human. So who are we to make people hurry up and awaken? Or who are we to worry about if our gifts are coming online? Maybe this is what we wanted to. Everything is exactly perfect for the way you aligned it and the way these people all aligned it.
Well, I'll tell you what, there is so much peace that comes about when you get to the point where you're living your life in more of a neutral state. And that doesn't mean that you're not getting excited or you don't get upset, but you've moved more into a neutral state, and you can sit there, and even when people are being complete jerks, you can say, you know, well, they are being the most beautiful example of what they want to be as a jerk. You know, and it's like,
a beautiful
look
jerk.
How well they're doing that.
Exactly.
Like, wow, I can marvel at it. You know, it's like you just pull yourself out of the situation. I mean, it's hard when it's being directed right at you and in the moment and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, you've obviously engaged in that experience, you know, but I believe firmly that, you know, that it's a, just getting to that point of observation. But then again, we're still supposed to be experiencing this experience.
Sure.
Like, I think that's when we talk about the duality, because you pull back and you can go, oh, interesting that this is going on. Interesting that I'm thinking this, you know, and it's like right there, you're having to play with your consciousness. You know, it's just, oh my God.
I think it's
so
important to
many
be able to
levels.
have both of those experiences, the ground level view and the bird's eye view, to see the bigger picture, but also to play the game from the ground level. And when those people that annoy you come into your life, it's giving you an opportunity to be who you are. So what experience do you want to have? How do you want to present to the world? And granted, it's not easy. And God knows I'm not giving advice to anybody because I lose my shit a lot.
Well, here's a really
you?
cool thing.
But if you can look at it as an opportunity,
Yeah.
right?
What's really cool to do with your consciousness is to sit there and like you've got a problem, facing you, and you're just stumped and you don't know how to deal with it, and it feels like it's a mountain and it's just horrible and all this stuff, and you step back, get into like a meditative state or whatever, and you step back. And like I've learned to do this process where I see myself in a chair, then I pull back to the room, then the house, then the city, then the state, And when you realize how teeny tiny all of that is, and that you're an infinite being, you kind of just go, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Put it back in perspective, right?
Yeah, it's just, but I don't think it's like one person up there kind of pulling puppet strings. I think it's our higher self that's playing the joystick, and it's like you're either connected with your higher self and allowing the reception of those movements, or you're blocking yourself from it and you're allowing yourself to just be like kind of mind numbed or whatever.
The stupid human playing stupid human tricks, as David Letterman would say.
Yeah.
But and it's when you do come to the, I'll say the epiphany or the realization that, really it is your higher self that you're being guided by, or, the universe itself, then that's where you begin to feel that flow, or that ebb and flow of the natural cycles of everything. And it doesn't, for some, they've harnessed that. For some people, they've harnessed that. That's what they live in, and that's how they operate. It seems like every time I feel like I'm in that spot, there's like a big speed bump that pops up. And then everything gets all shook up.
Speed bump named Allison.
No,
Wow.
Sure, but but just certain things happen in life, and then all of a sudden everything gets shook up, and you're like, ugh, and you have to recalibrate, and then you got to kind of find that connection again, and so I would love to be in that state of awareness and connectedness and flow. Some people call it flow, where you just let it be.
I would like you to do that too.
but we're getting there.
Oh, sure,
but,
sure.
We still think about 100 years ago, we were like really having to like create everything, like physically.
Oh my gosh, it was
everything.
hard work.
That was, and so, compared that to now, it's like, you can sit and eat popcorn and watch all this drama on TV, and then in air conditioning, and so
do a podcast.
Do a podcast on a Saturday, just because why the hell not? But I just think like we're moving that direction, but the whole point of coming here was for the contrast. It was for the what is it? The roller coaster ride.
Yes, for sure.
The duality of it, the good and the bad.
But I think it's cool because when you go through those like whatevers, it's like I find that I do get, I can pull myself back out more easily and get into that Zen.
Yes.
But I think it would be, if it was really truly Zen, like I've thought, wouldn't it be nice to have, a bucolic farm, like just, really pretty and everything's lovely, and I've got some goats.
No, I would be bored.
I would be bored until I had to kill the goat, for food, and then
wrangle the chickens up.
and then maybe, but
that's why that's why we want to come in, because it is boring to be just, if everything's the same, and you're always happy and you want for nothing.
Okay, and I'm not saying I compare myself to anybody, and I don't. But it is fun when you're flipping through Facebook, and when you see the same group of people, and it's like, do these people not work? Do these people, what tropical island are they on this week? And they're all frolicking around in the Zen, and I'm like,
living their best life. That's right.
That's not my Facebook feed.
Well, that's my Facebook feed, and I'm like, do you guys work? I mean, how do you pay your bills? I want to figure that out.
They're at work, sitting there, just living their best life on their phone.
Right, they're churning harder than I am, probably trying to make
Okay, wrangling cats. I want to talk about a few more things before we get.
There was something
finished with this episode.
So how would we know?
Just a few other things that the collective mentioned about this whole situation, and the first thing they said was,
your questions, because then you asked a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Cool.
When I asked, is this true that two consciousness can share one body? They said, well, you actually do that when you're pregnant.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Now, there is some debate about when I think the consciousness dips in and out and in and out and in and out up until the time of
That's what
birth,
I've
and that's
done,
usually when
yeah.
it kind of solidifies. But
Yeah.
they did use that as an example. So they said, this is not completely foreign to you, having two consciousnesses in one body.
That just went extreme, though.
Yeah.
Their experience. Yeah.
Right. And then what was really, here's the other interesting thing that I was fascinated by. Annika does not have any allergies, and Tristan has allergies to seafood.
Oh my God. Okay.
Now, when Tristan is mostly present and Annika's in the background, he can't eat seafood. They can't eat seafood because he'll get an severe allergic reaction. She can eat seafood all day long when she's primarily present.
So we're talking about frequency once again.
So I asked the collective, I'm like, so does that mean, well, the other thing is memories. Like Annika doesn't, just because they share the same brain, Annika is not privy to everything that Tristan has in his memories, for example, before she was in the body.
I have an answer for that.
Okay, you tell me after.
Yeah.
After let me tell you and see how it jives with what you know already. But I said to the collective, I'm like, so are memories and things like allergies and special things like that, are they stored then in the consciousness and not in the body? Because I thought things like the propensity for cancer or allergy things were stored like in the DNA and stuff like that.
Hereditary.
Yes, like the body comes in with some of
Could be
those things, right?
activated,
Okay, so that's basically it, is that when the consciousness of Tristan, for example, takes over primarily, the entire body, including the cells and DNA, change. Now, if you went to a doctor and they checked DNA test, you're going to look normal, completely normal. But the structure, because your cells and your DNA are consciousness, they're comprised of consciousness, that consciousness is basically absorbed into the body. It takes over the body and presents that way. And then in a split second, when her being takes over, her consciousness takes over, then everything changes. So I said, okay, well, if you have the human body who comes in with a propensity for these conditions, like you're like, okay, I'm going to write in my contract that I'm going to have a body that has a likelihood of this, that, and the other from my parents. But you also have a consciousness who's lived various past lives and has the energy of those past lives of unresolved conflicts that can cause problems in this life. We know that can happen, right?
Yeah.
Which one takes priority? Like, how does that work if things are mostly in the consciousness? And they said, no, the body has this also. And so what happens is, like Bruce Lipton said, you have all of these possibilities in your body, but the consciousness is what triggers it or activates it. So if you don't
That makes sense.
handle a disease or disorder from the energetic first, you're missing the boat. You have to handle it from the consciousness level first, because that's what's activating it in the physical body. That's the primer. That's what's turning it on. That's the engine.
And it doesn't mean
That
that
makes
once you solve it from that consciousness aspect, that it's going to be completely gone.
Right.
It may, but
I think it's due, like
What-
how
what'll
far
be-
gone you've gone or what you had in your plan.
Right, and-
but
and-
they
but
said that it
whatever's
makes
left-
it more manageable.
Right,
It makes
whatever
it more
left
manageable,
is-
and
yeah.
it's more easily identifiable, because if you present to the doctor, you have all this consciousness from past life stuff that's going on and causing this, then the doctor can't really even figure out.
it'll be masked
It's
so
masking
deeply.
it.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense, because I know people, like, they get it cut out, and then all of a sudden those same cells are elsewhere
Correct.
in the body, and it's like, well, you didn't solve the problem.
Exactly.
Like it's,
Exactly. So I thought that was really interesting, one thing that we
is
asked.
very cool.
And then we went into this whole discussion about the ET consciousness and how that ET consciousness can come in, and that's different. It's not even a consciousness, the ET energy, and how that's different from a human consciousness.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the thing that I was listening to, the video I was listening to today, they talked about how we know the short-term memory. This is when they were talking about water and the power of water and stuff like that. But how short-term memory, they know exactly where that's stored. They can see it. They know when it's been disrupted. And you lose executive function, all that other kind of stuff. And they said, but science to date has not figured out where long-term memories are stored. There's nowhere in the brain that they've been able to track it down, map it, anything.
It's in the cloud.
It's in the cloud, the consciousness cloud.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, and that makes sense that she wouldn't be able to access that information because it's not in his brain. It's in his consciousness.
Or even if it
not
is in
hers.
his brain, it's her consciousness that's activating her memories.
Yeah.
And then his consciousness would activate the parts of the brain that contain
but
his
that's still
memories.
a consciousness field.
Correct.
So so you're activating a consciousness cloud field.
But if your cells are actually
Right.
consciousness, then you're activating
Just
the cells.
wondering, okay, like now I want to run all kinds of experiments with them. Like I'm wondering if their aura changes. Like I would think that their etheric bodies, like whatever, that would shift. I'm not sure they've done this stuff, and tested it. If
They
they've been
did
with the
say that
noetic
they were making themselves available for science to play and figure out what's going on with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I would want to. Well, I would want to see if there's a difference with the DNA, but I also get that it depends on the frequency of the consciousness is going to turn certain things on, turn other things off, which would then affect the look of the DNA. Like
But, I mean, think about DNA
know.
itself. I mean, so the DNA, I guess we're going to get really deep, I think.
Are we? We don't have a long.
I'm going to try to make this quick, but
notes.
Okay.
but you've got the DNA from the mother, the DNA from the father. Obviously, you get them together. Now you've got this newborn or this infant or whatever, and that DNA, is it activated or not? And is it activated immediately once they're united, or is it activated once the consciousness enters in? So then, if that's
Well, you're only taking half from each.
well, that's what I mean.
but when is it activated?
But when
Oh, it's activated when the consciousness comes in.
okay,
Yeah.
if that's the case, then it is truly an energetic activation. This is why we say that we do DNA activations, and it's through energy that we're activating it. We're just we're flipping switches on and off.
Yeah.
Energetic switches.
Correct, and that's
on off.
exactly how Bruce Lipton describes it.
Yeah.
And this is why,
See, I'm not a Bruce Lipton follower, so I don't.
Yeah.
if you have unresolved anger from a past life and you wanted to come in here and resolve it, if you don't have the gene that would give you the propensity for breast cancer, the BRCA gene or whatever,
Yeah.
then you're probably not going to have that anger display as breast cancer. It might come out in some other way. So
some
it
other
takes
form.
the physicality as well and activating it by the consciousness.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah. It is. It's.
Anyway, I was dying to have this conversation for this podcast because this whole thing, I just can't get it off my mind. I'm fascinated by it.
For good reason. Yeah.
We'll definitely have the links for it in the show notes. So
For
be
sure.
on the lookout for it.
And then let us know what you guys think about it. I want to know who else is on board and if you sense that this seems true to you. If not, use your discernment.
And I'm going to throw it out there because you usually throw it out. But I'm going to throw it out there. Be sure to hit the like button, the little thumbs up thing, and share. Please share. We'd love to be out there with more of your friends. So please share our podcast with your friends.
And do I get to say something?
Absolutely.
Sure. Closing
My
remarks.
closing remark is you guys got to go back to the earlier podcast we did in which Allison sings.
And give her a few kudos.
No, I'm just saying. It surprised me. I wasn't looking for compliments. I just thought somebody would say,
You guys gotta hear her sing because it's so much fun.
keep your day job or something. I figured I'd get
No, but
some
it's-
kind of compliment or either a comment.
It was just fun.
Hey, we have.
It
thick,
was fun.
Well, at least myself. At least myself and Allison. I know we have thick skin because we were in the military. I would imagine you probably have a little bit of thick skin. Maybe I don't know. Maybe not as much. But yeah.
Well, one of our viewers said in one of the episodes that the tree was growing out of my head. Well, it's not. We moved. Oh. So thank you for that insightful comment.
So.
Anywho, well, that was a fun romp through consciousness.
Yes.
Until next time,
Yep.
see you later.
See y'all.